about rediscovering apostolic Christianity, and one of the points that he made, I think, is so true, and that is that in reality, almost every renewal movement in the church has had, as a part of its desire, returning to the purity of the early church. And sometimes that's blown out of proportion, because the fact that we have New Testament epistles was proof that from the very beginning there has been problems. Every epistle in the New Testament is addressing problems in apostolic Christianity. So we don't go back to the church because it was, quote, perfect, but because Christ delivered the teachings to the apostles, who then delivered them to their disciples, then on, as well as the ordinations that were passed on, the structure of the government, the sacraments. And so that's what we see as a thread throughout apostolic Christianity. So ready for your phone calls. Again, the phone number is 1-800-221-9460. And let's take our first email. This comes from DR. Dear Marcus and David. David, has your background as a Protestant charismatic led you into the charismatic renewal of the Catholic Church? Have there been any advantages to your growth in faith for having been in the charismatic church? Thanks, and may God bless you.
In answer to the first part of the question, has it led me into much of the charismatic renewal within the Catholic Church? I would have to say not really, and not because I think there's a problem with that. I think, and as Pope John Paul II has expressed on many occasions, that it's a sign of vibrancy in the Church and certainly has its place. The difference, I think, with myself and when I came in to the Church, even as a charismatic, a lot of the emphasis that I was used to was still, we talked a lot about order and government and things like that, and charismatic ministry, charismatic gifts were things that flowed out of a community of faithful people. There were many charismatics that came to our church that were disappointed because we weren't charismatic enough, things like that. And I saw a lot of things that, especially in a lot of those circles, that I wasn't comfortable with, things that I didn't want to be involved in. And I think, in part, that was what turned me to look for stability in sacraments, in praying the Liturgy of the Hours, in certain things that you would think as a charismatic I would look at and say, well, that seems to be a little dead and dry. But I found life there. And I think that charismatic gifts in ministry should flow out of something that's rooted in those things. And speaking for me personally, I needed that rooting in sacraments. I needed that rooting in prayer, like the Liturgy of the Hours. Sometimes I would talk to God, but really didn't always know what to say, or didn't say it as well as I would like to. And of course, God knew my heart. But sometimes reading the prayers of the Church, a lot of that collective Christian wisdom being put into those prayers, saying those prayers from my heart to the Lord, certainly those were the things that, if I could put it in those words, I would have expressed. And so, I find that though the charismatic renewal in the Catholic Church certainly has its place, I feel like God has called me to emphasize and do other things. The second part of the question,